Have you ever created a loop that sounds great when you play it once, but quickly becomes dull when repeated? Well, in this video I will be showing you a super easy way to add variation to such loops using the circle of fifths. The link to the resource I used in this video is in the description, and I will explain everything you need to know, so don't worry if you're not familiar with the circle of fifths. Alright, to start off, let's listen to a couple of examples. In both of these examples, the variation is basically the same as the original loop, but with one key difference. And, pardon the pun, that difference is the key. So I've simply repeated the loop, but in a different key. And this is where the circle of fifths comes in. It can help you choose a new key that will sound good when you change to it. So let's go through the process using one of the examples I showed you earlier. Here's how it sounds without variation. It's a lot less exciting. It sounds great all the way up until it loops, and then it's just kind of dull and repetitive. So let's fix this. To start off, we need to know what key we're in. If you don't know how to figure out what key you're in, keep watching because I'll show you a way to do this without that knowledge later on. But for this example, we are in the key of E minor. Now we can find our key on the circle of fifths. The outer ring with uppercase letters contains major keys, and the inner ring with lowercase letters contains minor keys. So E minor is right here. Looking at our key on the circle, the adjacent keys are all good options to change to in general. But for this technique, we'll focus on the keys that are adjacent and in the same ring as the original, which in this case are A minor and B minor. Now we just want to duplicate our melody or our loop, and then change the key to one of these. We'll take a look at both, starting with B minor. To get into the new key, we can either raise or lower the notes. I like the sound of the higher notes in this example. I feel like it adds more energy. Speaking of liking things, please leave a like on this video if you're finding it useful. Doing so will help more people learn about this great technique, and I really appreciate your support. Okay, so it sounds pretty good already, but there's one thing we can do to improve it even more. And this is changing the end of the original pattern and the end of the variation so that they transition into one another more smoothly. Getting these transitions right takes practice and experience more than anything, but here are a couple of tips. 1. Make sure you're moving in the right direction. So currently there's downward movement at the end of the original pattern, and then it jumps up to change the key. It doesn't sound too bad, but it could sound better if it had upward movement leading into those higher notes. And 2, borrow from the next section. Are there any little patterns that you can use from the next section in the transition? Or if not, what notes or chords can you use from that next section? So for this example, we'll just take these two chords and swap the order to give it some upward movement. Now let's do this again, but change the key to A minor instead of B minor. So copy the pattern over, change the key, and smooth up the transitions. So far, we've only done this for one pattern in the loop, but we want to do this for all patterns that are in that original key. So melody, chords, other harmony, bass, and so on. The process is the same, so I'll just cut to the final result for this example. So why does this work? Why does this sound good? What's the theory behind it? Well, if you want to learn more about music theory, you should subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm planning to release more content related to music theory in the future. I'm also planning to answer those questions right now. So here are a couple of reasons that this technique sounds good. To identify the first reason, we can take a look at the notes of these keys. We'll start with E minor, and then add A minor to the left and B minor to the right. If we adjust the notes so that they are in the same octave, we can see that A minor and B minor are both only one note different from E minor. A minor has an F instead of an F sharp, and B minor has a C sharp instead of a C. This close relationship of the notes is one reason that this sounds good. For the other reason, let's learn more about the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths gets its name from the fact that if we go around the circle clockwise, we go up by a fifth for each key. G is a fifth above C, D is a fifth above G, and so on. Conversely, if we go counterclockwise, then we're going down by a fifth for each key. But another perspective for going counterclockwise is that we are going up by a fourth. So F is a fourth above C, B flat is a fourth above F, and so on. This means that if we find our key on the circle, the two adjacent keys in the same ring have a relationship of either a fourth or a fifth to this key. You don't have to memorize any of this. If you click on one of the keys, it will show you these relationships over here, fifth and fourth. But anyway, this relationship is another reason that changing to these keys sounds good. In a sense, these relationships used this way work similarly to chords in a chord progression. You can think of the original key as a 1 chord and the adjacent keys as a 4 or a 5 chord. It's very common for a 1 chord to move to either a 4 or a 5 chord, and it's also common for a 4 or a 5 chord to move to a 1 chord. There's a certain tension that is built and resolved with this movement in chord progressions, and this tension also occurs when changing the key like this. So that's some of the theory behind why this technique sounds good. Now let's go through the process one more time, but without knowing what key we're in. We'll start with the other example that I played at the beginning of the video for this one. Without variation, it sounds like this. To get the variation for this, we can export the pattern as MIDI by opening the piano roll menu, then File, and Export as MIDI. Drag and drop this MIDI file into the Transpose MIDI section of the Circle of Fifths page. Select what you want to transpose to, either fifth or fourth. Click Download, and drag and drop this MIDI file into a new pattern in FL Studio. You can cut and paste this into the original pattern if you want to see them in the same piano roll. Smooth up the transitions, and repeat for any other tonal instruments that need to be in key. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope you find this technique helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.